In part one of effective B2B ad campaigns, I talked about how we develop our positioning and messaging by stage of the funnel so that we can rapidly come up with different ad and message concepts. And then how we use AI to actually do some of the heavy lifting on copy iteration and image ideas. Um, in this, in part two of this, I'm going to talk about how we are able to take a a large volume of messages and ad concepts and produce them really quickly. Why? But before we get into that, I want to talk about why this matters. Um, with everybody's, with B2B companies, your, your ICP and addressable market tends to be relatively small, despite what you might tell your investors. And especially in the current economic conditions and just in general, right, we're all trying to focus on the prospects that are the best fit. This means that the pool of people that you really want to target and that you really want to acquire as customers is pretty small at the end of the day. In some companies, it's for some businesses, there's 120 accounts. For others, it's maybe a couple 100,000 companies in total. But at the end of the day, that's not all that many people and businesses, especially when you consider how many other advertisers are out there vying for their attention, not just other competing B2B products, but of course, the big world of B2C advertising too. So if you're targeting a small pool of people, how do you like consistent issue is one of audience fatigue, right? You're showing people the same ad again and again and again, which reduce or you're targeting the same people again and again and again, so they become resistant to your messaging. They don't engage with your ads after they've seen them over and over again. Well, the biggest way around audience and ad fatigue is to rotate ad creative and copy very frequently to keep your frequency per ad on the low end and allow you to just keep sort of enticing them with new messages and new ideas. The framework we provided in part one is excellent at helping you come up with different message concepts and developing the copy associated with them. In part two, we'll talk about how we go about actually building those, turning those into designs. So our approach here is that once we have 2 or 3 message concepts ready for design, so we have the idea, the ad copy, the description, the text, and an idea for the image that we want, we share them with our outsourced design team. It's amazing the quality of designers you can get offshore at a relatively low price. Our brand team hired them, provided them with our brand guidelines, and ultimately has final say on whether the assets are living up to our brand. But we've kind of pushed back to some extent and said, hey guys, we're going to run. If you see something you don't like, we'll correct it, but we don't wait for design to block us on rapidly producing ad creative, because in this day and age, we need to move fast. Once we've shared the concepts, what we'll do is we'll typically link inside of our concepts to different existing images or assets to help the designer with inspiration. This is frequently a point of contention for teams, or a place where things slow down quite a bit, is if you can't give the designer clear direction on what the image should be to go against the design. Especially if you're dealing with an outsourced designer that doesn't really know your product super well, you have to give them fodder for design. So AI can help you with a general idea, but typically we refine these concepts quite a bit. And we provide inspiration, leveraging existing assets or images that we already have. So for example, we will link to those ideas inside of our design file in the inspo for ads section. After we've shared the concept with our designers in Slack, we'll say, hey, we'll share links to the Notion, which contains the different variants we want the person to work on. And you can see we send them, we can have for each of our messaging concepts, we have 5 different variants. So for example, the day of 10/5, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We had 45 different images that were under development at the same time. This is awesome because it gives us a lot of fodder for iterating on our ad campaigns quickly. They'll typically ask for feedback and send and add comments in Figma. And then what we do is we ask them to link to those comments and provide links to those comments. We will iterate 2 to 3 times frequently. We'll go back and forth. You can see here, I'm saying, hey, I'll record a loom sometimes and share my feedback, and then we'll go back and forth until we feel like we've got it finalized. And then once it is finalized, the concept is kind of nailed down, the designer will ask for permission to create different variants. So we always produce a variant for the news feed of Instagram or Facebook, the Facebook and Instagram stories, as well as for LinkedIn news feeds too. And I update the status in our to be when it's complete, so that it's like in flight in Figma, as well as update the status in our project tracker so you see it's in design or it's design complete and ready for testing. In conclusion, we are able to rapidly scale our design process by having multiple concepts, B, using AI to help with some of the image idea suggestion, C, providing guidance and links to assets, and then D, using collaborative tools like Slack, Notion, and Figma to provide feedback and iterate rapidly. All in, this makes us never have to confront audience or ad fatigue because we can rotate creative very quickly.